Welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Any ideas expressed by the guest, myself, or commenters may not necessarily reflect the same opinions of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Enlightenment defined. It is the state of giving or receiving greater knowledge and understanding about a certain subject or situation. Evolution defined. The gradual development of something, especially from a simple to more complex form. So what is enlightenment evolution? The state of giving and receiving greater knowledge as we develop from a simple to more complex human being living on Earth for our soul's experience. Welcome now and join us as we explore our Enlightenment Evolution Hour together. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is simulcast live every Wednesday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific from the Enlightenment Evolution Hour page, Matrix Minds Facebook page, and the ET Whisper YouTube channel. It is also redistributed from the Forbidden Knowledge News Network and Conscious Awakening Network. Hey everybody, welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer, and we have an amazing show ahead of us today, guys. Welcome all of you from the ET Whisperer YouTube. Hello. Welcome all of the Brainiacs of the Matrix Minds, and welcome the Enlightenment Evolution Hour people. Welcome. Feel free to use the chat, guys, liven it up. Say hello to each other, say hi to everybody. Welcome, guys. We have an amazing show about everything. We're going to be talking about the galactic energies. We're going to be talking about channeling. We're going to be talking about the equinox. We're going to be talking about a lot of great topics tonight. We're going to introduce 4 different amazing guests tonight. One of them, you already know, a dear friend of our show who's been around for a long time with us, Reuben Langdon. We also have Suzanne Ross, who's amazing. We have, she's the person who's created and started the Sedona Retreat, which is amazing. We have Cedrine Savignon, I believe is pronounced, and forgive me, Cedrine, if it's not. And she's an amazing channeler who'll be a part of this event. And also Georgia Jean, who has also been featured on Reuben's show, Interview with Ed, on the 3rd season, and an amazing channeler. We've got a lot going on, guys. Before we do that, we'll get into a few announcements. The same thing that we've had going on will continue to go on with the network announcements. Nothing new in the world. Both shows still need to get some information for going, but Kalina is going to be starting her show, The Earth Experience with Kalina Angel, within the next few months. She's very excited about that. So we want to let you guys know that. As for the ET Whisper, really, the only announcements we have are the same ones we had last week and the week before. Part of it is the Sedona event, which is going to be in September, but we're going to talk about that later tonight. We also have the energy behind Patreon. The $22 tier is the only tier that exists now. We're doing some more mainstreaming and streamlining as it comes to that, and we'll definitely be connected with that energy as it goes forward. So we just want to let all of you guys know how that's going. And as for the show, we've got some guests coming up. Riz Misra is going to be with us the week after next. His wife, Oriya Misra, will be with us the week after. And down the trough, we have several great guests, and we will announce them as we get closer to those days and shows. You can always go to the ET Whisper YouTube channel and subscribe if you want to know what guests will be coming on within a few days of the live stream that we do every Wednesday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific. Then you'll know who's there, but also you can find out by going to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour Facebook page, which will be transmuted eventually to the website of its own, and also Matrix Minds, all the Brainiacs. If you're already part of any of those, you'll get the information. Now, that aside, we have an amazing show, guys, tonight. And again, I want to reiterate all my gratitude to everyone who's showing up live, everyone who listens back. We have a show that's going to be talking about the Galactic Roundtable event that we're going to be doing during the Sedona event, which is the Sedona Transcendence Retreat, which I'm going to be a part of. And we have several guests here. So I wanted to start off just with a little bit of everybody sharing a little bit about who they are. Because we have so many guests tonight, we're not going to follow the normal formula, but we are going to have some great chats, guys. We'll start off with Georgia Jean. Welcome, Georgia. How are you?
Hi there. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad you're here too. I've been fortunate enough to do a few things with you now, get to know you a little bit better. I just released the video, the first conference we did together. I released that on my YouTube channel. So everyone who's
Oh,
watched
wonderful.
that might have gotten to know you a little bit. But
Uh-huh.
for those who haven't, can you share a little bit with them, maybe about how you got into channeling and kind of what took you from there to where you are now? And I know that's a lot to fit in a little time, but
Yeah,
if you could share
sure.
what you can, it'd be great.
I read your description of the how you usually run the format that you have, that you're sort of interested in, that the genesis, I suppose. And I've talked a lot about the event that I had when I was living in LA, and I was doing stand up and I was doing a lot of spiritual work to kind of handle the intensity of that world, and all that inner work and personal development work um, led to this spontaneous knock you to the floor event where I spontaneously developed this channeling ability. And I had been listening to a lot of a lot of Abraham, and I had visited with Abraham in LA. And I'm somewhere out there, I'm on one of the recordings talking about being a starving comedian and having to drink water at night. Because I was so poor, I couldn't afford food, and I was going through all of that stuff. And many of those, that was obviously, actually, I think sitting with Abraham, one of the um, sort of energetic initiations it probably took to activate uh, what was building for a long time. And I was also reading Seth at the time, a lot of Seth, and Seth talks about doing this kind of night work. So I had started doing that to go to bed at night, and I still recommend this to anybody who's interested in developing the ability to write it down before you sleep, that you want to go and visit with the masters, or whatever you want to call them, or your higher self, and open this up. But in terms of like a total kind of life incarnation path, I think the very first thing I think of is that when I was a kid, I had those imaginary friends. And now I really understand that I was talking to either actually even a future version of myself now, because my best imaginary friend's name was George. And I think a lot about the love and acceptance work that we do is a big part of our work, and a lot of that inner child healing work that is a very necessary part of being a channel. And I sometimes think that my imaginary friend was actually me now, doing all the love and acceptance work with my with my inner children. But it was always there, and this sort of, you don't really know what's in front of you with this pathway. Um, I was interested. I got a book on palmistry when I was 15. I started reading tarot cards, and I was just fascinated at an early age with why we are the way we are. So they're all like little things along the way that you don't realize you're on this pathway leading to what looked like a big, massive energetic spiritual event. Um, when I was living in LA, and since then, so that happened in 2004. I've been channeling the Circle of Light, is the collective that I work with, and we've done just thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of channeled sessions now. I have a weekly conference call I do called Monday Night Awakening, and I've been working with clients. So through all those thousands of sessions, you just get a huge amount of information about how consciousness works, how we create the matrix of our reality through the mind portal, how to shift it, what you need to dissolve to really make radical big changes in the reality that you're experiencing. not just on a personal level, but actually the inner energetic work you can do to shift the broader perceived matrix as well. So yeah, we've been doing that work, for a long time, and we have boot camps where we've done more in-depth trainings on how to essentially bend the matrix. And now a huge focus of the work is the surrender to the heart, submission into the heart, so we can generate all the potentialities of the new 5D grid framework beyond the linear mind structures, beyond the survival mind, and really create this new personal and collective reality, which is just an exciting revelation that we can't really know completely what's coming, because it is about surrendering and allowing the heart to generate and receiving this new creation. So that's sort of, the beginning until this point. My website is Circle Evolution, and there's a lot of free material on there that can help people, fill people in on the work that we do. And I also have my podcast coming out of the Cosmic Closet, which sort of goes through that Genesis story for me, but also helping people. Many people are kind of, having radical openings, and they're not really understanding how their experience has gone from a kind of linear reality, and now they're having like telepathic communications with their neighbors and stuff like that. So our purpose is really to help initiate people into their next levels of consciousness and actually support people through those initiations, because it can be very challenging space for the old mind framework to fall away and allow this kind of new consciousness to give birth through ourselves personally, and also of course collectively. So that's the rundown.
Well, that's beautiful. I appreciate you sharing that too. And there's definitely some things you said that we're going to circle back around to a little later as we go too. So thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to ask you, Cedrine, what was your story? How did you get from before you were a channeler to where you are now, and kind of how did you understand and know that you were able to connect with that energy?
Oh, thank you so much, Rob. Thank you for having me here. It's a great pleasure. So
Thank
yes,
you.
my story is, I find it quite, it keeps on opening up and reveal more aspect of my own past, as a human being on this beautiful planet that we get to share all together. But as I was born, I would say I was born with certain abilities to connect with non-physical beings and other realities. Only it was really all over the place. I was not really aware I was doing that consciously. It was just part of the thing that I thought, it happens to everyone, until I started realizing, well, it's not really the case, and I don't control anything, and I'm really scared, and I'm terrified. And yes, I connect to my angels, but I also connect to all of these entities and demonic frequencies, and it is really unpleasant. And back then, I was living in the countryside in a very old farm in Belgium, and it was full of entities, and they were coming at night and doing all of these nasty things, energetically. And I remember praying every single evening for my chakras to close, for my intuition to close up, because I just did not wanted it. I just could not take it. And it's very interesting because only years later, I started realizing that I was also being visited, by our beautiful galactic friends, and they would come in my garden, and I would go out at night. And it's interesting because my sister was, suffering, I would say, from sleepwalking, but my mom always caught her, but then she never caught me. But then I managed to close all of my abilities. And at the age of 12, we moved to a city, and I just basically went down the rabbit hole of, being a really pretty rebellious, angry teen and doing all the things that human can do to kind of alleviate sufferings in life. I had a really good life as well, but I really, every time I had some kind of experience, I would say like, oh no, I just don't want it. It's too much. But they would keep on coming, these experiences. I would be visited. I would have more or less pleasant to very unpleasant experiences. And I remember this experience very vividly when I was living in Brussels in my early 20s. One day I was just walking down the street, and then all of a sudden I felt this huge shift happening around me, and I felt these four beings walking down the street with me, light beings. And I was like, oh, what's this? Oh no, something is happening again. But only then I felt like empowered. I felt really good. I was like, oh, look at me walking down the street with these badass beings. I don't know who they are, but they feel super cool. I'm awesome. I'm so good. I'm so intuitive. And all of a sudden, I'm feeling very excited. And then I started connecting with them telepathically. And I said, oh, who are you and why are you here? And they said to me, oh, we are your friends and your family. And we are here because we are here to share very important things with you and to activate you in your purpose. And I was like, what do you mean you are my family? And they say, yes, you are one of us. And actually, not only are you one of us, but you are also more powerful than us because you have the body, my dear. You can pick up the phone, you can send the emails, you can take the decisions. You are our ambassador on the planet. And there, something very interesting happened. I shut off completely and I say to them, that's impossible. How could I be one of you? I'm so bad. I am so unperfect. If I'm on planet Earth, it's because I'm trapped in the wheels of karma, because I have sinned in the past, because I mean, I lie, I cheat, sometimes I steal in shops, makeup that I really want to have and I don't have money to buy. I'm such a bad person. There is no way that can be one of you. And so what happened is that my belief system prevented me from actually deeply connecting with my family of the light because I was really believing in like the wrong architecture of karma. I didn't really understand the true divine architecture of karma and the wheels of incarnations on planet Earth. And they kept on coming every now and then, but basically I was really so unhappy with myself. I hated myself so deeply. My heart was so broken inside. I was living the templates of separation fully that I could not access their connection, their teachings fully. But then something shifted. I started realizing that I really needed to do some inner work because something was off. From that day, I felt something was off. And I went down into reading, doing all the things, and it really helped. And it's interesting to know that my mom was highly spiritual. My father is yoga teacher, and I'm the third generation of yoga teacher in my family. So it's like I was always brought up with lots of channelers, tarot readers, and like spiritual people, but still I wanted to keep my things closed. I was really unhappy. I was really angry at everyone continuously. So I'm sharing this because to me, it's like I cannot really trace a moment where I really woke up or I had an awakening, but I can remember that what truly matters to me, and I see that also in all the people I work with, is really empowerment. It is doing the inner work on saying, if I want to open up my channeling abilities, if I want to connect with my family of the light, it means that I need to love myself. I need to be happy with who I am. I need to open my heart because they are actually really high vibrational beings and they love us unconditionally and they never judge us. They're not impatient either, like we often project our own limitations and belief systems upon them, but they're actually so beyond that. So just like, oh, they're beautiful little human. We will be here when you're ready. And so basically, I started saying, okay, all of these things have happened to me and it's still happening to me. So now I need to train to understand what's going on. So I started, practicing on people, and my ability started expanding more and more and more until it exploded really when I started trans channeling as I trans channeled the Arcturians. And from there, I started downloading my own body of work. Well, it's not but it's the body of work that, as an ambassador for the High Council of Light that I co-create with, this body of work around fractal dynamics, which is really architecture of life, and understand how we can quantum leap reality into experiencing the highest level of sovereign embodiment that we are here to experience and really live a great, fun, pleasurable life that is also woven into templates of kindness, of gentleness, of power, and of really uplifting humanity to create a new golden age of miracles, which is actually starting to unfold, as we know. So we are really here, me and my high counselor, to share these teachings on really helping people to transmute all densities and limitations into the light, into the portal of the heart, by connecting with their soul, but also with their body and with their family of the light. May they be galactics or ascended masters or totem animals or even earth realms beings, like tree spirit, for example, which I love working with. And it's really helped people remember how powerful and multidimensional they are, so we can unapologetically claim the life that we were here to experience, that we are whole, sovereign, and complete already. It's just human wheels of illusions that we chose to have because we like to have a play in this current reality. It's just, how can we work with our human as an angel behind a human to really take our human on this journey on planet Earth? So it's the best wild ride we can have while also serving others. So we work a lot with activating leadership, activating freedom, activating sovereign soul embodiment, and channeling abilities, because we do love teaching about channeling, because to us, everybody can channel. It's just a matter of learning. So one day, we know channeling will be taught at school, and it will be very, very exciting to be able to all telepathically connect with our neighbors, as Georgia said. Like, sorry, what kind of boundaries can we create so we don't pick up on all the thoughts of all the people around? But you know what I mean. It's like really stepping into the new earth together with all our beloved humans with us. So yeah, this is a little bit about me and my work. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Sadrina. I appreciate you being here. That's beautiful. And I definitely want to come back around to a couple topics there too. I appreciate that. Next, Reuben, I want to ask you, because you've been here on the show multiple times. Maybe this is the third or fourth time you've been on this show, and multiple times on other podcasts, webcasts with me. So our audience knows you pretty well. And you've shared your story a few times. So can you tell us a little bit about the creation of the interview with Ed, and what brought you from that point to kind of wanting to connect with all these different channelers, and eventually, how you come to do all the CE5s and stuff like that? Because I think that's really important too, not just for today's topic and what we're talking about through a lot of those things, but you're also probably one of the most experienced people that I've ever met when it comes to connecting to all these different channelers, and being able to do the CE5s as frequently as you do.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Good to be here.
As always, brother.
Yeah, yeah. I would say I'm like the opposite of Sandrine. I'm in Georgia, where I'm so curious because I haven't really had any far out experience. I mean, maybe I guess I have now since I've been in this world for a minute, but prior to that, I never did psychedelics as a young kid. I never did any drugs. I never had like sort of an out of body experience. I did martial arts and I meditated a little bit, but nothing like nothing ever happened to me that was ever like out there. And then I got curious. I had a 2007 sighting event where I saw a craft in the sky, and then that's what piqued my curiosity. And I was like, okay, there's something more to this reality that we're not being told. So that started my journey into ufology, and then that led me to producing the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure. And I know a lot of you guys already know that stuff, but I'm just saying because it connects to after sort of pursuing the standard ufology crews and evidence-based research, I kind of got bored and I couldn't get answers. Like there was a lot of things that added up and a lot of things didn't, and people were kind of all over the place. If you ever go on UFO Twitter, you'll see what I mean. It's a mess. So
I don't want to interrupt, but to be fair, honestly,
mm.
a lot of people who know you from Interview with Ed might not have known about the citizens hearing, that you were
Oh, okay.
instrumental
Yeah,
part of that. You know, just
right.
some people who recently got into it through Gaia TV. Can you share a little bit about how that came to be too, just for reference for people?
Yeah, sure. So the citizen hearing on UFO disclosure, we produced it 10 years ago. Stephen Bassett and myself, and then Jeremy Corbell was he made the introduction to both myself and Bassett, and he was never part of the actual hearing production, but we had hired him to do the directing for a film that was supposed to take place simultaneously called The Truth Embargo. And so when he was there all 5 days and much before, in part of the planning stages, I should say. And so now look at Jeremy. I'm rooting for him because now he was right there sitting behind David Grush during the last week's congressional hearings, official congressional hearings. So 10 years later now, we are getting some form of disclosure. It's our take. I'm sure your crowd knows that our disclosure is happening now with us. We don't need Congress to tell us that. But I was still trapped in that paradigm back then, thinking that this has to be a sort of a an official event. It has to be in the media. That people have to see it. I was still at that time, the media still had a little more clout than it did now. And it was sort of, we all subscribed to that idea that that's where you get your news, from the media. Now you get your news from, the Enlightenment evolution. Can't even say it today. Evolution now, or evolution. So we're slowly breaking those old paradigms, but at that time I was stuck in them, and I wanted to know more because it just didn't make sense. Some of the dots that were being connected, and there always tended to be the biggest motivation was there tended to be this little bit of negativity towards the ET phenomenon. Like if you listen to any of the Ancient Aliens folks, they'll say positive things, but then there's always, they like put the period at the end of it could be dangerous. And through all my investigations and all my research, I was not finding any sort of fear other than the people injecting the fear. Like the phenomenon itself, the actual evidence didn't show any evidence of being a fear type situation, an event. So when I started listening to channelers talk and talk about non-fear based stuff, and then how it was kind of going, how that's actually what was happening, new concepts of unconditional love, the world is ultimately neutral, this good and bad thing, are human projections. So all that stuff started to make more sense than all that stuff started to make a little more sense than the typical evidence-based ufology crowd. So that's what guided me into Interview with Ed, because I was getting way more answers to the questions I was having around ufology. So is that, I don't know, and do I need to keep going? Was that, did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And just to expand a little further than that, if you can, what got you to that point to start doing CE5s?
Right. Actually, so in 2010, this was actually early on in my journey before this citizen hearing. I had gone to a Stephen Greer CE5 gathering. This was after my initial site in 2007. It took me a little while going down the rabbit hole, but trying to find answers, and then stumbling upon Greer and his work, and he was having a CE5 event in Rio Rico in 2010, and I signed up for it. And 3 nights in a row, we had amazing light shows, and I was trying to explain him away to, is Greer, puppeting a light show behind the scenes? What's going on? But on the third day, he was still, we were setting up and preparing for the CE5, and he was still talking on stage before we even got into the meditation. And off to the horizon, I saw these two orbs, red, and they were flying in unison, and they were booking it across the horizon. I've never seen anything based on, just the visual distance, how far they were and how fast they were going across the sky was nothing like I've ever seen. And I, nudged the guy next to me, and I'm like, "Hey, look over there. Do you see that?" And then he saw it, and then, he nudged, and then we sort of it was like a group of 200 people. And our little section of the crowd, we were all like, while Greer was talking, we were kind of interrupting the show, pointing and like, "Oh my God, you see that? You see that?" And I just remember Greer didn't stop. He just kept talking. So I was like, okay, I don't think this guy's orchestrating this one. So then I was like, okay, I think this phenomenon is real. Now I've had enough experience. And that was in 2010. And I had kind of done, private ones on my own here and there. But then I started, on the show, season 1, I interviewed Lisa Royale Holt. And she does contact work. She actually used to be part of Greer's team in his early days, and then branched off and started doing her own thing, introducing channeling into her toolkit for doing the CE5s. And that's really just that, doing it several times. I've been to several events, both in Japan and the US. And that really got me excited about doing that type of work, the contact work. And I sort of, last year, I have a local group here in Southern California that I was like, you know what, contact is, it's happening. People are having it. I just need to make it a part of my regular schedule. So every new moon is as many as I can make it, just sort of get into that routine. And and I do breath work that I teach on my portal, membership portal, and just came back from a session. And I started introducing breath work even at Lisa's retreats into the contact work. And I found it helps to open the portal a little bit better. So over the years, we've sort of, myself and Latal, who will also be at our event, our Sedona event, been working with her, and she brings in the sound healing elements with crystal bowls and gongs, and then we've kind of just been doing our thing with, and it's been going really well. We've had our last new moon, we had a sighting, a ship. No doubt it was a ship, because it did a 180 in the sky, and then stopped and sort of hovered for a minute and disappeared. So you can see satellites, and you're looking at them like, is that a satellite? Is that a ship? I don't know. And those are always a little confusing. But when it does a dead stop in the, and then goes the other direction, I don't think we have anything in our, even David Fravor at the hearings last week was saying there's nothing in our fleets that would be able to do that, unless you're talking about reverse engineer technology. But I don't think our high vibes would be calling any of that stuff in. So that's the CE5 stuff.
Beautiful. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. And we're definitely going to touch back on CE5 too. I want to bring in Suzanne too right now. Suzanne is the founder and creator of the entire Sedona Transcendence Retreat. I want you, Suzanne, first of all, hello and welcome to you and everyone else. If I didn't say it, sometimes I get caught up in the moment and I forget my hellos and thank you. But thank you for being here. Can you share with everybody a little bit about how you got started on your spiritual path and what brought you from there to the creation of these amazing events that you do twice a year?
Well, hello, all the listeners, and thanks, Rob, for having me on. And I'm just so delighted that I can be here with some of the presenters for the Sedona Transcendence Retreat. My experience with the other realms actually began before I was even born. My father had a very significant abduction experience when he was 18 years old. Him and some buddies were driving through a field in Saskatchewan, and they lost 4 hours of time after seeing a bright white light darting across the field. And the next day, my father discovered that he had a triangular shaped metallic object under his wrist. When we were growing up, he actually called it his alien chip. And that event dramatically changed his life. Shortly after that, he's recruited by NCR, National Cash Register Company, and ended up getting transferred to Dayton, Ohio, right next to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Wright-Patterson actually founded National Cash Register Company, and my father spent a lot of time at Wright-Pat. He became a genius in computer technology, a pioneer on the front lines of the emerging computer age. And he literally attributed it to his alien chip. Now, growing up, he spent a lot of time pointing up at all the constellations in the sky. And he would explain to us that the nebula were like star nurseries. And he was really focused on the 3 belt stars of the Orion constellation, and pointed at the Pleiades and Sirius. And it just embedded in me a fascination with the stars. And, you know, he shared with us that he knew there was other life out there in the galaxy. And I mean, Whitley Strieber's book was on our coffee table. So just kind of gives you an idea, the influence I had growing up. And then I had actually a missing time experience myself here in Sedona in 2017, when I was with 2 friends, and we had set an intention to call upon the Arcturians, because we both, you know, all 3 of us felt really connected to the Arcturian race. We went out on my back deck. There was a huge explosion of white light. We all felt dizzy. We were on an upper deck, and on the stairwell, the motion detector started to go off on the bottom stair, the middle stair, the upper stair, but we didn't see anybody coming up the stairs. And the next thing I remember, I turned to my friends and I was like, it's freezing cold. Why are we out here? We went inside. We were all kind of disoriented and exhausted. And I said, I'm going to bed. I don't know why I'm going to bed so early, because it only felt like it'd been a few minutes, 15 minutes maybe. Then I went to the kitchen and turned my phone over, and it said 12:40. And we realized we had lost 4 hours of time. And so we were all stunned. After that experience, I started to realize that I was going into these trance states where I was seeing interdimensionally. I was seeing other planets and other star systems and the beings upon there. And then I started to realize that I was present there, and I was channeling through my name, the role I was playing, where I was at. And soon I discovered that I could do that for other people too. And so I started to do multidimensional soul reunions, realizing that the main purpose, I mean, the soul reunion is a beautiful experience to, truly know your multidimensional selves, but also that a soul merge with your higher dimensional aspects can really create for you a leap into higher consciousness, because you're literally merging with a more advanced and evolved aspect of yourself, vibrating at a higher frequency, more of their, dormant DNA strands activated. So that's when my business got much more galactic in nature. I had already been doing channeling and even automatic writing since about 2010. Really got deep into Buddhism in 2008, and discovered that those practices really allowed me to go into deep trance channeling states through, mantras and mudra and tantra, and then started channeling that way. But once I started channeling, I started channeling like Saint Germain and Mother Mary and these amazing beings. And then ultimately I realized I was channeling my own higher self for much of my work, which became my books and a lot of the teachings that I offer in the courses on my website. But yeah, I hope that. Oh, and then I moved to Sedona. I was called to move to Sedona and really felt compelled to start hosting gatherings of like-minded souls and inviting people who were prominent in our industry. And it's really grown since 2015. I just had, maybe 10 or 15 people. And now, we attract up to, 500 or more people at my big March events. Now here in September, of course, we're having this galactic retreat and during the equinox, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, why did you choose the equinoxes to do this? Because I know a lot of people put emphasis on the equinox and the energies and the solstices and the energies there. Why do you feel it's just a more powerful thing, or is that your reasoning because of the power of the energy?
It was really based upon my study of advanced ancient civilizations who built entire temple complexes around the rising sun of the equinox. And they would build these little keyhole windows. They would align their stairwells, like in the Mayan temples, with the rising sun of the equinoxes. So I believe they knew that it was a very sacred time to connect with their sky gods. I believe they also thought you could have a transmigration of souls coming to and from different portals. We know the Egyptian pyramids are aligned with the equinox and solstices as well. So that inspired me to want to have my events during those special times as well, when we know the veils between interdimensional realms are thin, right? So that we can connect more easily with the other realms and even our own higher selves and our spirit guides. Yeah.
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute. That's beautiful, and I've always really loved the equinox and solstice energies too. Me and my wife used to do live streams on those times because of their importance and the energy there. And thank you for sharing your story. I wanted to come back to something that Georgia had said about Seth and that being an idea within her energy and her journey. Is that the same with all of you guys? Were any of you guys exposed to Seth beforehand?
I mean, only the book. Really.
Yeah, it was the books I was reading.
Yeah, it's something. And what about you, Sadrine? Had you ever been connected to Seth? And the reason I ask is because most of the channelers I have who come on here, or people who are deeply connected to channeling, have some form of connection, whether post or pre-experience.
I have connected, but not very closely and intimately yet.
I see. I see.
I think something I probably noticed is when I started channeling, so that was 2004, there really wasn't a huge plethora of well-known channels like there is now. And that was some of the first messaging that we got, which was like, lots of people are going to be doing this, because at that time it was like Abraham was really big, and Seth, I was reading the books, and then there was a couple of other people that I found out about later, but it wasn't like now with Reuben's show. So many channels have been given exposure, and as a comedian, when I started doing, started channeling, and they were saying, lots of people are going to be doing this in the future, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be like me doing stand up, and we go and do all these open mics, and there's just like tons and tons of comedians doing their kind of 5 minutes of time at the open mics. But in many ways it feels like it has boomed in the 20 years that I've been doing it. So it makes sense to me that maybe a lot of people didn't need to connect to Seth, because there's so many people to listen to now and start tuning into those frequencies, which is, I truly believe, one of the activating ways that people start to get attuned to become a channel, is to listen to and connect with channeled materials beforehand. I'm not sure if other people agree, but that would be my thoughts.
Yeah, no, the 2010 is when I first started publicly channeling. So around 2008 is when I started doing my thing. And when I went online, you know, YouTube was fairly new at that point. There were only like Lee Carroll, Daryl Anka,
Yes,
and
Lee Carroll.
actually, I didn't even know about Esther Hicks until after I met my wife. She's like, "Oh yeah, I bet you love Esther Hicks," and I was like, "What? Who's that?" The biggest
Right.
channeler in the world. So there wasn't a ton out at that point. And I wanted to ask you, Georgia, too. Suzanne brought up something that was beautiful about the ancients building these structures and sites. Have you ever had any insight on that, or anything that your channeling has provided about context for these ancient? As historians see it, indigenous tribes who built these monuments to the solstices and equinoxes?
Well, something that has come through, which I think is a little bit different, but does speak to the idea of temples, and that I have channeled when I've channeled the Isis energy, which is a bit more about the divine feminine energy and the rise of the divine feminine energy. In that, when, let me just get this right because it's been a little bit a while since I've channeled this information specifically, but that when that frequency was stronger on the planet, and I can't give you a specific date, that the use of temples and statues and that sort of thing were actually part of what ground that grid framework into reality. And I think we're doing the same now. There's sort of like the energetic, 5D grid that we're building, and there probably will be more, maybe, what's the word, consciously built structures that will help support the work that we're doing energetically to build the 5D grid. That's just a little kind of idea that just popped into my head then. But so a lot of the temples to the goddesses and were built as actual physical frameworks to help anchor that. And then when there was the rise of the patriarchal energy, and this is why you read about it like in the Bible, they actually smashed a lot of the the physical temples and the statues that were helping to anchor the grid. And sorry, this is a little bit off track, your question, but it does speak to the idea of like this sort of relationship of ourselves as material beings and the spiritual frameworks and the material buildings and temples that support the spiritual frameworks. That a lot of the healing work that women are now doing is actually a rehealing of the breaking and the shattering of that physical temple framework that was supporting that vibration on the planet. And that so there's such a rise, for example, in body issues, and such a huge amount of healing that's going on in relationship. And I'm sure it's in the male culture as well, but this is specifically about the healing of the relationship for women with their bodies is the work that is helping to rebuild the energetic framework that helped to support that feminine energy on the planet as it was being ground down by temples and stuff like that before. And now we're coming to this real balancing between, having the masculine and the feminine energy in its divine form balanced on the planet. So I haven't channeled specifically about the temples being gateways, but I'm sure it's all connected. You know what I mean? But that is something very interesting that I have channeled about temples and how the actual energy grid frameworks were bound in the physical structures, and how our bodies and the journeys that we're having with our bodies is reflecting that grand healing of the grid frameworks.
Well, that makes sense, and it really resonates too, to ground the energy of the ether and the collective into the grid system. The temples
and
made sense.
into our bodies for embodiment now, which is a huge part of bringing the 5D framework into physical materiality. It's not enough to feel it energetically. We again have to, it's almost like heal our bodies to bring the energy into our bodies so it can become a viscerally experienced physical material reality that we have as the collective again.
Thank you. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense too, especially with the balance of the divine version, masculine, feminine. It's all been about balance lately. And Cedrine too, I know you had something to share about this topic too, maybe through your own intuition or something that your guides might have shared as well.
Oh yeah, thank you, Rob. I love what you shared, Georgia. What a fascinating subject. I get very, very excited with that. As over maybe a year and a half now, I've been trained a lot by Hathor, the Ascended Master Hathor from ancient Egypt, also connecting with Isis. But Hathor, oh my God, I love her so much because she's really the multidimensional queen when it comes to embodiment, as she lived in physical form over 300,000 years ago. As we know very well, like our history books are a bit erroneous, we would say so, they're not really correct. But she was sharing with me that really during Atlantean times, they were able to open up gateways into specific time and location depending on the frequency. So it works with the highest level of frequency refinement in terms of opening up these gateways between certain galactic systems, star system, planets, when they were in resonance with our central sun and other planets, as well as the grid of the Earth. It would give this kind of like very strong electromagnetic field. And therefore, the humans there would have the ability to welcome extraterrestrial on the planet. So they would be like open highways in a sense. And so during Atlantean time, I have revisited memories myself where I would come on planet Earth as an Arcturian. So when I see myself in Atlantis, I don't see myself with a human body. I see myself with an alien body. And we would use massive, gigantic crystals in different locations, as well as certain geometry with certain buildings, like the pyramids. We had some very specific materials on top, and then inside the chambers, going also deep within the earth, because we are working as well with inner earth beings to open these portals. And in Atlantis, it was kind of like the center of Atlantis, like the most advanced Atlanteans knew how to do that and would do that until everything went down went downhill and it was stopped. But then the knowledge was carried in different civilizations, and ancient Egypt was the one that was able to replicate these gateways. So Hathor was able to open up these portals to welcome Syrians, more specifically on planet Earth, and also to herself transition with her star nation, the Hathors. And she reached such an advanced level of mastery of her own multidimensionality that she was able to shapeshift within her physical avatar body from Sirius, or from like a human body at will. And so after the fall of the great civilization of ancient Egypt, it kind of got more and more, the volume got turned down. And when Isis was there, she also managed to activate her etheric wings, but the portals were already closed. So it means that star races could no longer come just like that, using these huge electromagnetic field vortexes to come on planet Earth. But if they wanted to come, they're through ships, and it makes things a lot more complicated until eventually the vast majority of star races as well as humans say like no more, because humanity is going into really the long dark ages that we are coming out of now. So all other ancient civilizations were birthed from the the fall of Atlantis as well as Lemuria, where they also had similar technologies to connect with Palladian star system, for example. And so these technology were shared in many ancient civilizations and practiced differently. And nowadays they say that we can use still these portals as literally, it's like that, it's like a galactic highway. So one day we will be able to remember how to use our own energies as keys, because we need to have keys that open these portals, and the keys, we have that within ourselves. It's just we don't know how to use that. And they say it comes a lot also with our vibration and nervous system. Like in our nervous system, we need to be really balanced to be able to handle this very high level of frequencies. But the time will come when again we build great temples and like pyramids, but also all of these circles that we can see in different civilizations. And now if we practice like retreats as the Sedona Transcendence retreat, for example, and we go there and we really connect with our heart open and everything that we are, and we call our friends, we will feel them more in these moments, because as Susan so beautifully shared, the veils between dimensions are very, very thin. So we, as the year passed, now they say that more and more we come into embodied experience of feeling them. And they share here with us now that they want to help us to have more of an embodied tactile experience. So they say it is great to call us and to see us in the skies and to call for UFOs, but what about feeling the brush of a hand against your skin, or feeling the hug from your guides, feeling that they are there walking with you down the streets? Because eventually this is like really connecting to our multidimensional connections and reclaiming humanity as a powerful nation amongst the star nations. So we are heading down that way, and we are very, very excited to be in Sedona and to see if we can perceive and feel even more as we are there into the equinox portal.
Thank you. That's beautiful. And of course, the Sedona area is something where a lot of portals and energies are too. And it makes sense that the energy there would summon up the excitement. And I know how these types of events work too. Just the collaboration with a bunch of excited people together helps bring out that energy, with everyone connecting to their higher self and their guides. But being in a place with a portal energy like that too, is only an increasement of that energy by a lot. So thank you for sharing that. And Reuben, I know you've been to these places around the world. You've been to many of the sites, specifically in Central and South America, that I'm aware. You may have even been over in Egypt. You've been to some over in Japan and in Europe. Can you share a little bit of your own insight with what these sites mean, or how the energy connects with them?
Yeah, this journey on the sort of ley line storyline, I guess, ley line storyline, started for me when I really kicked off this past 3 years. I started working on a documentary around the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, and Bill takes the skull around to these different power spots and lets this, and the skull kind of connects in to help reset some of the meridians and ley lines. And I started learning more about our ancient history. I guess I was so focused on the ETs and out there, I didn't realize all of the awesomeness that we have here on Earth, and that journey with the skull, and eventually, like season 3 of my show really started to say, everybody started raising their hand with indigenous teachings and shamanic practices, and they're all like, "Hey, we're cool too, we're just as tapped in as your ET brothers and sisters." So that's been my journey of late, and just even more recently, this whole unveiling of the Tartarian civilization, I guess, is like they started in Russia and worked their way over here into the US, even in building and having sort of technology like temples that were tapped into the grid lines, and they even had forms of electricity, and just amazing architecture, and this is just up into the late 1800s. So we're sort of all these forgotten technologies are not so forgotten as we're remembering who we are, and sort of piercing through that veil of secrecy that our mainstream society has constructed. And what happens when we go into those deep dark areas? It's like a rubber band being pulled back, and I feel we're about to let it go and start launching to this new era of humanity where we are reconnecting to these ley lines, reconnecting to lost technologies, and reconnecting to our cosmic brothers and sisters as well. So it's exciting times, and it goes full circle. And I'm excited that we're going to be in Sedona, this sacred ley line, tapping into these amazing portals and doing, with intention, and doing the work we're doing with these with intuitives and everybody else. As Rob was saying, when we're all gathered together, magic happens. So excited to do that with everybody.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? The magic does happen, and we've got to experience that before together. And I can't wait to do that again with everyone else here. So it's been the Tartarian thing is a huge rabbit hole itself. And when people go to investigate that energy, there's a lot of things misrepresented in our history, which is not abnormal. As they say, the victors write the history. So that's pretty crazy itself. And I actually think Trevor Ardif actually spoke a little bit about Tartarian energy recently. I just can't remember where or when, but listening back, yeah, it was amazing stuff. What about you, Suzanne? Is there anything you wanted to share about these gateways and portal energies? Any of your own insight or your excitements about those?
It has truly been so phenomenal living here in Sedona and getting the opportunity to go out into these powerful vortex sites. When I first arrived, I was fortunate to meet a gal named Shakina Rose, who represents Blu-ray star seeds. And she took me out to several sites, which she knew were powerful portals. So I felt so fortunate because she would start by doing a ceremony. There would be like a ritualistic way that you would actually enter the portal, and you could feel a marked difference when you would step into the portal versus how you felt outside of it. You would feel lighter, brighter. She took me to some red rock sites that were steep to climb, and normally I'd be like laboriously climbing them, and suddenly through the portal you would just float up the side of the red rock, and I was just so blown away by that. And then she would tell me, now let's lie down and set an intention to make a galactic connection. And oh my goodness, we would go into these telepathic meditations where we would have the same experience of connecting. Mostly with her, it was the Pleiadians, but there would be scenes where there would be a whole gathering of Pleiadian beings, and we would be at the center, and we would be being crowned. And I mean, it was wild. I would come out and start telling her, this vision that I had. And she would say, oh, I was there. I can tell you exactly what happened. And we were kind of blown away that we could have these telepathic meditations in the portal, connecting with the galactics. So yeah, living here in Sedona, I do Sedona journeys out on the land during private retreats with people, even just a one-day journey out on the land. And I just love taking people into these really powerful vortex sites and engaging them in these types of experiences.
Well, I know I've heard this from everyone. Like one person I heard had a bad experience at Sedona, but also had a very ungrounded energy well before getting there, and Sedona brought them what they needed to get straightened out. But a lot of people have had these great magical types of experiences, and even you have had some peacock experiences that were not even like, peacocks don't belong in that part of the country, nor do any of your neighbors have them as pets. Can you share about that? That's an amazing story.
Rob, I am still blown away. So firstly, I used to live in Northern California in a crowded neighborhood with row housing, and we had a little postage stamp front yard. And one day I was just upstairs, I was doing my thing, trance meditation, channeling, and automatic writing. And all of a sudden I just felt compelled to go out to the front yard. I kid you not. I opened the front door and there were 2 blue peacocks standing in my little postage stamp yard in this row housing neighborhood in suburbia, Northern California. And I knew that it was a magical moment, that I would swear that even the neighbors wouldn't be seeing these peacocks. And I knew that they just had appeared, they had just manifested magically. And so I remember calling my husband and being like, there's 2 peacocks in the front yard. And he's like, okay. So when it was like, a couple weeks ago now, because I sent you in Georgia the pictures and the videos right from my front yard. So again, I'm doing my thing, probably meditating or doing something. And my dog started going ballistic at the front door. So I went to the front door, see what's going on. 2 blue peacocks standing in my front yard, walking around in my front yard. And I instantly recalled how the same thing had happened in Northern California. And I just stood in awe. I just watched in awe as they just walked around the front yard, walked over we have a waterfall. They were walking on the stones. Eventually they just kind of laid down in my front yard. And then they started to walk out of the yard they stayed in the yard for like 20 minutes. And then when they started walking out of the yard, I walked out. I kept the dogs in the house, walked out, and I just followed them. And they walked down. They walked up to the road, walked down the dirt road a little ways, dropped down into sort of gully, and then just disappeared. I couldn't see them to save my life after that. So I don't know, right? Nobody owns peacocks in my neighborhood. It was just so magical. So thank you for mentioning that. And of course, I looked it up, and peacocks are extremely significant in the Hindu tradition, especially.
Yeah, Kalina, my wife, was a practicing Hindu for a long time, and she explained the meaning of that too with Krishna and the feather that was worn. It was amazing stuff. So thank you for sharing that too. And we're approaching the last little end of the show. We got about 20 some minutes left, and I do want to spend some time talking about the event at length. But before we do that, real quick, what about disclosure do we want to talk about, guys? Georgia, what can you give us 3 or 4 minutes about what do you think's most important about disclosure right now and why it's such a big thing in the collective?
Well, with our work, we always go back to how our minds are ultimately generating our reality, and that the perception of anything, physical, material, emotional, it's frequency first, manifestation second. So with the opening of the pineal gland, which is there's a lot I could talk about the pineal gland and what it does, and we'll be talking about it at the retreat. That as what's been going on is that basically there are bands of frequency that are being opened up to us to even perceive, and also the number of the energetic connection points between the brain and the pickup. Sorry, I'm not saying this very well, but there's 12 energetic connection points between the pineal gland and the brain, and depending on how fully and partially open they are, that is how much of the frequencies that lie outside of our physical perception become receivable, and the brain can start to learn how to produce and generate this. So with frequency first, manifestation second, as we have an increase in the multidimensional frequencies, we are able to now generate more of a multi-dimensional experience. And if you might include that as being able to see energies that are from other dimensions physically and materially. So in a linear sense, the idea of disclosure and this becoming more real and more validated from the way the mind generates reality, it's by natural course that as we're allowing more of these frequencies in, we're learning to embody it ourselves, because as I think Sandrine or somebody else mentioned here, that it's when we integrate our multidimensionality, we'll be able to generate multidimensional experiences as more physical and material experiences. And naturally, the storylines will follow, that we will get more personal and collective validation that there is existence beyond our typical human framework. So to me, I see it that this sort of level of disclosure is happening because we are becoming more multidimensional through the integration, through the opening up and being able to perceive and receive these frequencies that lie outside the normal physical perceptual range. And that those energies that are representative of the galactic energies that we're allowing to come in for embodiment will become more physical material, if that's your jam, if that's what you want to perceive and experience in your life. I always see that the storyline is always secondary to the way we are opening up and receiving more frequency and vibration, and our brain then can actually give us that reality. So that's how I perceive it from our teachings.
Well, thank you. That's lovely. It's beautiful, and it resonates a lot. And Sadrine, what about you? What do you see that's most important for disclosure right now, as we're kind of connecting with that energy more publicly and more in the face of everybody?
Yes, Rob, I would love to share an experience that happened to me that really illustrates the information that I am personally receiving from my team about the disclosure. About 2.5 years ago, I moved into an apartment that was overlooking the entrance of the Wellington Harbor. And there was a huge galactic portal there. So this is why I had been guided to move into that beautiful new apartment overlooking the sea. And on the first day, as I was unpacking in the kitchen, my back was turned back to the double doors that led to the deck that led to this portal and this beautiful view of the sea and the mountains. And I was just doing my own thing there. And then all of a sudden, I felt this shift in frequency and all my hairs on my body starting to rise. And I felt as if the blood had been drained from my body. And I started sweating. It all happened very fast. And then I slowly turned around. The double door was open because the sun was shining. And there, a very tall blue Arcturian was standing right there on the deck. I swear, it took 2 seconds, only 2 seconds. My friend showed himself because I nearly passed out. So I was like, what the hell? And I had to go and sit down. And I didn't even have a couch back then because I had ordered it. It hadn't arrived yet. And I sat down on the wooden floor. I was like, what just happened? And then he laughed and he says, and this is why we don't show ourselves yet, because you trans-channel me. We talk nearly every day, and yet 2 seconds of seeing me nearly creates a heart attack. We are not coming to kill humanity in a mass wave of heart attack because your nervous system cannot take it. So work on your nervous system. Nervous system embodiment of high frequencies is everything. So more and more, we're going to come and we're going to be with you in physicality, next to you as you sleep, as you walk down the street, as you garden, as you hang out with your friends. We will be amongst you. So your system can get used to being around very high level of frequency. So for me, since then, I have really tapped into nervous system regulation, because I was always very, like excited all over the place, or very much down, like, oh, life is too challenging. So now that I have been able to really regulate my nervous system, I have been feeling that the time is coming closer, to be able to really perceive them. But they're very careful, because they love us and don't want to create too much trauma in humanity. So they are really intelligent, kind-hearted, and very advanced beings that when the time comes, it has to happen. It will happen in a beautiful way. It will happen in a really harmonious way. So I cannot wait. And the timelines keep on shifting, because often I'm asking, but when? Because a lot of people ask me, and it's like, when the time is right, they never really answer precisely. But I believe that it is possible that in this lifetime, we get to a point where some of us will be able to, in the intimacy of our own homes, or sacred sanctuary, or ceremonies, or retreats, like in Sedona Transcendent Retreat, maybe they will start coming more and more into places. So very exciting topic indeed.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that perspective. It resonates too, very much so. And Reuben, I know disclosure is one of the things that you're most excited about. Can you share a little bit with us, just maybe for about 3 minutes or so, what is the most exciting aspects of this, or what your insight tells us about, disclosure altogether?
Yeah, I'm kind of in, I'm in the Georgia Gene camp because I've, interviewed the circle and got that frequency first tidbit. So I've been taking that into consideration, and I'm enjoying the disclosure narrative, because it is sort of, I do a Friday weekly sort of news breakdown on my membership portal, and I look at the news not to tell me what's going on, but as a marker point for where the energy is, because these things are happening. It's just showing us where, the frequency was, and if the frequency was heading in that direction in a positive way, which I think it is, then that just, we can use all these disclosures to look at our next steps, where we're headed, and look at the frequency now. So it's exciting because, a big part of it is this permission slip for those who still need to get that validation from our governments. As I was saying earlier, this is a permission slip now to be more open, and for people to be more honest with themselves. I'm seeing so many videos popping up now just in this past week in different accounts that maybe normally wouldn't share that type of stuff. I'm also seeing people share their own personal experiences on Twitter Spaces, and becoming more open about their experiences that they were afraid before to be ridiculed or shamed or shunned. We're sort of the brave ones here doing this, having this conversation for the past 10 years. So, but there's many people who needed that external validation to feel comfortable enough to come forward. And now that that's happening, it's a feedback loop, and it's just going to continue to propel us even more into more transparency, more people being honest with themselves, and then more disconnection from the controlled narrative, so to say, and then us individually finding our power and becoming our own best, highest versions of ourselves that we can be. So that's what's super exciting, I think, ultimately about disclosure. Of course, it's a tumultuous time right now, and there's all kinds of agendas attached to it. But as long as we focus on the prize, we'll get through all the bumpy stuff. And we know what disclosure is for us personally, and that's whatever distractions are put through the media and that kind of thing. Just ignore the noise and stay excited about what's happening.
Absolutely. And I love you sharing that, brother. I appreciate that. I want to have you, Suzanne, talk about the event. But before we do that, I first wanted to thank all of you guys for coming on today. I'm going to have your websites individually set up in the description. I did not really get that done, and I just realized that right before we went on air. So I'll make sure to get that done. And I want to thank you all for doing the work that you do in the collective. This is a rough time for humans to navigate, and people like yourselves who have been willing to share from your heart, willing to share, the mental energy behind it to help kind of bring the human complex that we have in the mental body to kind of lasso that and understand it in a better way. And just the energy of sharing your work with the public, it really means a lot to me. So thank you all for being here. And Suzanne, I wanted you to share a little bit about first, why you think disclosure is important, and secondly, if people are interested in coming to this Sedona Transcendence retreat, how do they do that, and what do they have to look forward to when they do that?
Yes, I do believe disclosure is important. I think if you were to do a survey of anyone on the planet at this point, that most people would wholeheartedly agree that there's life in other solar systems, that there's life in the galaxy, there's probably parallel universes with life. So I believe that, the disclosure that's happening now has been long in coming and is welcomed by most people on the planet at this point. As far as the event, yes, I'm so excited about our event, which is now only like 6 weeks away. Here in Sedona, such a powerful portal. For this particular event, Rob, it's really quite unique. I sort of tune in to what I feel would be best for the particular event that I'm having. And for this Fall Equinox event, I decided I wanted it to be a smaller, more intimate immersion experience so that people can have that one-on-one focus, that we can have small breakout groups, so that it can be really interactive for the participants. The participants can actually, ask the presenters questions. They can engage in workshop experiences based on the topics they're most interested in. And there's a lot of Q&A and a lot of practices that take place in the workshop environments. There's also outdoor journeys into Sedona's sacred vortex sites. I'm really excited about that. And again, you're going with one of the presenters to this very sacred, powerful portal, and they're engaging in ceremony, ritual, guided meditation, being tuned in to that spiraling vortex energy. And so I'm excited about being able to offer indoor workshops and outdoor journeys as part of this event. Of course, there'll be presentations and practices on stage. As a very special part of this event, our dear friend Reuben is going to be hosting a galactic roundtable. This is something I've never done at one of my events. And so it's going to be so incredible to be able to ask questions of the beings being channeled through the channelers that are present here tonight, Sandrine, Georgia, and Rob. So I really look forward to that. And the audience can come up one by one and ask the questions they're most curious about. Ask the Galactics, I call it. And then we will have in the evenings the CE5 Under the Star experience that Reuben and Rob and Littell are going to host. So our friend here in Sedona, John Polk, is my favorite UFO guide here in Sedona. He's been doing it for years. He brings night vision goggles. And so he'll be leading Rob, Reuben, and Latal into the space where we can have this experience. And then Reuben and Rob are going to bring in their own special process for the CE5. And I believe that Latal is going to bring in high frequency sound. So I'm sure that there's going to be sightings and connections with our galactic brothers and sisters out there. At the same time, indoors, there'll be sound journeys taking place. So we'll have on Friday night a galactic guided sound journey, and on Saturday night a shamanic sound journey. So a lot going on, a lot of really cool things to experience and participate in. But this event in particular is very galactic. I just felt very inspired to bring that in for this particular equinox retreat. So I invite everyone to come and join us, and I hope to see you all in Sedona.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Suzanne. First of all, the events that you do are amazing. You've had some amazing guests through the last few years that I've looked through. Just great people and great energy. And this year and next year in March are going to be no different. So thank you for putting that all together. I want to, since we have a little time left, I want to everyone to be able to tell people how to get a hold of their website. So Suzanne, how do people first get to the website to sign up for this, or to look it over and kind of see what they're thinking and what might be exciting for them? What website would they go to?
It's Sedona Transcendence Retreat.com. And there you can either purchase an all access pass, which includes everything, outdoor journey, workshop, CE5, or you can just buy a general admission pass. And if you want, then you can add on a workshop or journey or CE5, so that we have, variable price points for everybody.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Suzanne. And Georgia, what's your website? How do people get a hold of you if they want to check out your bodies of work?
Yes, it's circleevolution.com. Circle like the shape, and evolution like just like here we are. Circleevolution.com. We do both collective, like group work, and we do one-on-one work. A big focus of our work is really to take this understanding of energy and material and make people's lives better, as well as connecting them to their, particularly if people are hybrid energies, where they are this galactic human hybrid energy. We do a lot with helping people connect to the frequency streams from which they emanate, so they can feel more at home here, more grounded here, and unify that galactic energy with the human consciousness that's operating here on the physical plane. So we've done a lot of that work as well, for people who do have those feelings of like, I don't want to be here, quote unquote, or, they're longing for home. We do a lot of work to help bring the home here, if that makes sense, and get it grounded so they can lead more fulfilling lives here on Earth.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that too. I really appreciate you being here and everything that you've had to share tonight. And Cedrine, what's your website? How do people get a hold of you? What are the things that people might be interested in that you do?
Well, thank you, Rob. You can find me on sendreens.com and across all platforms. So YouTube, Instagram, podcast, it's always the same, Sendreens, which is spelled CENDRINES. So it's very easy to find me. And I'm actually very excited to share with you that I'm creating a new live show on YouTube. So every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, I will be going live with my High Council to share about the teachings that we bring in humanity. So there will be a lot of quantum teachings from star races, ascended masters, and so on. It's all very practical, kind of like really geeky in terms of spirituality, if we might say so, but also a lot of fun and embodied practices. And then during that show, the last Sunday of every month, we will offer a free live reading to someone. And there's like all a participation system. So people can already watch my very first episode starting this Sunday. So I'm very excited. And I think it's probably the best place to start to really get a taste of what it is that we are all about.
That's beautiful, and thank you. I wish you the best of luck with your first one coming up, and that sounds great. And we really appreciate you being here tonight and sharing from your heart on all the topics that we covered too. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And Reuben, where do people find your website? Pardon me. I know a lot of people have been wanting to connect to the interview with Ed material and the portal energy that you do. How do they find you, and what is offered through those?
Yeah, everything's at interviewwithed.org. And we have the show, links to the show, which is also on Gaia, but Vimeo is sort of the I call it the director's cut version. The episodes are a little bit longer and a little more polished. I went in and did an update on everything, all 3 seasons, and then I do a membership portal, as you said, as well. And every week I'm kind of calling it Interview with Ed 2.0. So since we have this awesome technology of Zoom, we can bring in new channelers and guests, and yourself and Cedrine and Georgia will all be on in the coming months here, coming weeks, as we get closer to the Sedona event. And it's great having you guys on and catching up, since we did our first episodes way back. It's always good to catch up and check in, and you just do the usual format of the show, which is I interview you guys, catch up, and then we also have the audience. And if you're a member, you can pop in and ask questions and hang out. It's a fun time. And there's a lot of other offerings as well.
Yeah, and what are the things you focus on with the portal outside of the channeling and bringing old guests back? I know that you do breath work and you do the CE5s, and what else?
Yeah, there's a lot of extra little content things here and there. I'm doing sort of my homestead experiment, where I'm trying to live as independent and sovereign as possible. We have chickens and a greenhouse and a backyard garden and a small, I live in a residential neighborhood, so a small plot of land. Just kind of seeing what we can do with the resources we have. We've got a solar system in the summer months, I'm 100% off grid. In the winter months, I'm still tapped in a little bit, but yeah, those kinds of fun offerings, making ormus, and doing things like, we also have another section that's popped up called the Raw Files, where I'm interviewing a woman who wants to remain anonymous, and she's channeling the raw energy. So those have been fun. And as well as we do a dream council on once a month on Sundays. So lots of offerings. So come check it out. And anybody who joins, it's the first 3 days are free. So if you just want to take a quick peek in and see what's under the hood there, by all means, check it out.
Beautiful, brother. Thank you so much for that. And I want to thank all of you guys for being here, for your sharing. It's been amazing. I want to thank all of you guys for listening, and all of you who've been active in the chat. I do want to also let you guys know that we're going to be here every Wednesday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern. That's 7 Pacific time, U.S. And the week after next, we're going to have Riz Misra, who will be a presenter at the Conscious Life Expo, as will I, in February of next year. And his wife, Oriah, will be here the week after him. So that's not next week, but the week after. And next week's guest will be to be announced. We had one person who was scheduled, had to change schedule. So we'll announce who's guest next week as they come and as it gets closer to the time. Thank you all for being here. Thank you guys for being a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. This is, of course, my greatest excitement. And thank all of you guests, too, for being here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rob. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. All right, everybody, we are out for the night. I love you guys, and we will see you here next week on the other side. Enjoy your week, and we'll see you guys Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific. Good night.